What's up, everybody? It's Alex Leak and Friends NBA podcast back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Dustin back on the show as always. Dustin, good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we got a special guest. We got Dime Dropper on the show from Dime Dropper Pod. What's up? Good to have you, man.
Hey, Alex, thanks so much. Dustin, thanks so much. We've been talking on Twitter for I think at least a year now. So it's cool to finally connect and do something in person. I was just telling you guys, I've watched all your podcasts with Ricky G. I retweeted the one with the X-Men. That's so dope to have an all-star on your stuff. So I'm excited to join the list of characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we've been following for a while. I think we got connected through like Ricky G, who's a great NBA Twitter guy. And the thing that I appreciate about you is that you do your research. You know, for a young up-and-coming podcaster, you study the game, you don't shit on past eras, and you're very knowledgeable. So mutual respect there for sure.
100%. I mean, we are part of the crew that tries to keep the history of the game alive. I mean, this wasn't intentional, by the way, that I'm wearing a Hakeem Olajuwon shirt right now. That wasn't intentional. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, my uncles I got one uncle that's a little bit older than you, just a couple of years, and then another uncle that's around 50. And growing up playing basketball with them, they always used to talk about their eras, what they grew up watching, which was the 90s for my younger uncle, and then my older one, the 80s. And, you know, Dr. J, Magic. I mean, come on, we're living in Los Angeles and having uncles that were around during the Showtime days. You hear stories, and you always just want to know more about what you missed out on if you truly love the game. And I mean, I've never realized how bad it was shitting on the past. I got on Twitter. I didn't realize how sensitive some people were about, then versus now. I always just had respect for the past. That's how it was.
Same here. Like, as a thing, you had a good point. Like, if you love the game, you love the history of it, and you want to know more and more and more. And it doesn't matter what era. There was greats in every era. I have two older brothers that, I grew up following the game. They were big Jordan Bulls fans. So I grew up idolizing my brothers and wanting to know the game the way they did. And, and then YouTube's free. We can always go and watch those.
So many, I mean, man, you think about the kids in the 90s and the 80s, they couldn't go back and watch Jerry West and Wilt and those guys the way I can go back and literally watch full finals from Mike or full finals from Magic and Bird. That's something that a lot of kids just don't have the patience for, the attention for, or the care for to go actually watch those games. And it comes down to, as I said, how much you really love the game. And also I feel like there are certain kids my generation that only like watching the game like a certain style. Like I have one friend, for example, he loves playing basketball. He's not a diehard basketball fan, but like he watches today's game. But we even go back to the 2000s and he's like, man, they're not making shots. I'm like, this is what it used to look. This is a hard defense, no spacing. You know what I'm saying? What it used to be. And like some people just can't even watch it anymore. It's just, I love watching games in different styles. I'll go back and watch games from the 60s. I love the fundamentals. So as you said, man, it's all about appreciating the greats, and it's curiosity too. I'm always curious to see how it went down, because hearing about something is totally different than seeing it actually play out, that wow factor.
Absolutely. A good example of that is I went back recently and watched the Nuggets Sonics when the 8-seed Nuggets upset the 1-seed Sonics in 94.
Yeah.
And everyone's seen Mutombo, with the ball, like freaking out. And then you go and actually watch the series, and it's so good, man.
I haven't even watched one of those full games, so I'm super excited when I get there to see it. That's a Nuggets team you just don't hear much about. You don't hear about – no one talks about Robert Pack. No one talks about – I mean, Mahmoud's famous for different reasons now.
Yeah.
But definitely a series I want to check out, and I'm going to check out.
Absolutely. So go ahead, Dustin. You have something to say?
Well, when you had us do that rewatch of Boston and Lakers, I think it was 1985.
Yeah, well, I actually haven't watched those full series yet, to be honest.
The speed of the game was just like, I was like, wow, these guys are really moving compared to what they were back then. And it was like, they wanted higher percentage shots.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the 80s is so much more run and gun than people realize, to be honest. You watch a game from even the 70s and 60s, man, the pace is unbelievable. And that's something that tricks fans. Is we've seen the NBA recently, like the last 6-7 years, go from slow to fast. But people think that now they're scoring 100 something. We've actually been there before. What's the interesting part that people need to talk about, and that people like in the NBA media need to talk about when talking about how the game has changed, how did we start going from fast to slow? That's something that's not talked about. And does that mean the players got worse? Because that wouldn't help your evolution argument, would it? So it's all about context, and people got to look at these things.
And that's the thing is, like, we're sitting here talking about this. Ricky G, guys like that talk about it every day, but ESPN doesn't talk about it. Fox Sports doesn't talk about it. They'd rather talk about and build up today's game and shit on past eras. And I think that's a big problem with today's media.
Yeah, there's also, I think there's also a section that represents the people like us, but they take it the wrong way. Like represents people that advocate for the old game, but they say things like, "Oh, so and so just couldn't even compete back then," or "It was just too tough for them mentally," and like, or something along the lines of like Skip Bayless, for example. He makes all the Jordan people, all the fans of the older game look bad. It's an extreme. Charles Oakley talking about Giannis would come off the bench. Like, look, I'm not going to disrespect their work everybody needs to adapt to their time. I think that it's always going to be hypotheticals, what would happen. And if you put guys in the past, putting guys in now is a little bit easier to me because the offensive rules have kind of made it so much more spread out. So like guys like John Starks would be encouraged to shoot like 6 threes a night, and that would help their game. But with the past, it's like, look, I'd assume, like, let's just use Giannis for example. I'd assume maybe he'd probably go to the post more back in the day. Like maybe his game wouldn't look the same. And that, you always got to give people a chance to adapt. So I think that the conversation is not really genuine from either side. It's hard to find people in the media that look at it objectively, but a lot of people on Twitter do. I was going to ask, dude, are you sure it's Ricky G that brought us together, or was it D for 384?
It might have been.
He was one of the original guys that started opening my mind up about the past a lot. He was giving some great counter arguments, and I was like, yo, low key, like, you're kind of spitting here.
I am grateful. Like my Twitter, the guys I follow, there's so many good ones. And so, same. I might like forget their, names along the way and stuff, but, there's so many. And I love the fact that it's growing and getting like a good following of people that actually understand the game, appreciate the game. And I'm growing my debating skills too, because I love calling out these fanboys, these LeBron fans, these kids. You see me and you tagging up on somebody who's, like that, what's that one dude's name? But these guys that are just like the 80s Pistons were terrible and, stuff like that.
Oh, man.
That's something that I really don't like. Like, when they can, when they have to go talk about LeBron and Jordan, they always say, well, Jordan didn't have tough competition, which to me is not true at all. They're saying that harder.
They just don't know. Like the people that say that are the people that weren't alive for it to me. I mean, there's some that say that talk about like the 90s. There are some people that say that the 90s Bulls were like just a favorite every year. Some people that are alive and some people that weren't alive. But people that were alive and in that era actually disagree about that. Like some people are like, oh, I never thought the Bulls were losing. And then some people are like, man, I actually thought the Suns or the Jazz were going to beat them. So like, It's mixed even then. The fact of the matter is, I know from talking to people, it's not as, oh, Jordan was just favored every time so easily like everybody makes it out to be. I know that for a fact because my uncles and people were alive back then. You can go back and look at broadcasts. I mean, they didn't have home court advantage in 2 of those series. And it's not like three-peating was very easy. I mean, until the Bulls did it, it was only the Celtics with Russell that did it. It's not like that was like some common thing. So the fact that it's so like, you look back at it 20 years later and it's like, yeah, maybe the 72 win team was probably favored to win that championship for sure after getting 72 wins, but not every single year, man.
Yeah, they take it too far.
I think it's because he made it look so like to win 3 championships in a row. It's like you have to think that there was no competition. Like you try to poke holes because it's like, damn, that's crazy to think about. But again, it's like you just gotta try to put yourself in the time period and watch as much footage as you can. And just the problem is people are too emotional. They have agendas to push themselves. So you gotta the standing. It's just that blocks. It's like a cloud in front of your brain.
Ricky G says it best: emotions ruin logic.
Yeah, emotions kill good b-ball takes.
Yeah. Let's get into this. So,
Let's do it.
How long have you been podcasting, and how'd you get into it?
Podcasting only not even 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I started in 2020 after I graduated from college, University of Massachusetts Amherst. Pandemic cut my senior year short. That really sucked. So I'd been thinking about it for a while. My dream job was actually inspired by like Charles and Kenny and them. I remember just like being a kid watching every TNT Thursday game religiously, and I would always think like, damn, I don't want to do my homework right now because all I want to do is watch this game so I can talk about it to my friends the next morning. Like these guys are getting paid to do what I want to do. That's preventing me from doing my work. So my dream job was to just chat shit, like just what we're doing right now, just talk about basketball on a bigger platform and get paid. So I figured, why not start my own platform where I also can talk basketball and be myself, like a Clipper fan, LA guy, and then try to get some former players on or some fans on and just have my own stuff. So I started in 2020 and hasn't even been 2 years, but here we are.
Very similar to mine, just I had friends, all I would do is talk sports nonstop. And my friends are like, why don't you try and get paid to do this? Like you're going to talk it regardless.
Yeah.
And
That's how it is. Yeah.
I was hesitant at first, it's, were you nervous at all your first time starting out podcasting?
Not at all. I've been talking sports and talking in crowds. Like I'm not like a public speaker or anything, but I was good in a public speaking class, and I was always the kid in class that would always want to present. And
There you go.
I don't know. I don't get away from I don't I do well in front of like people, and the attention doesn't bother me. Like I'm definitely full blown like extrovert. You know what I mean? Like you guys could probably tell from my tweets, I'm reckless sometimes. Like I mean, I like to have fun with it, and no hesitancy at all.
That's what's up. For me, it took a little bit. Like my first couple episodes, I was like, how's this going to be taken? Stuff like that. Very careful of what I say.
Yeah.
And then you finally get comfortable. Then it's just like, let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
So you're a Clippers fan. You've been a Clippers fan your whole life?
Basically, I mean, since I've been watching basketball like that, 17 years now. It's in Los Angeles, and the reason why is because the 05-06 Clippers were just as good, if not better, than the Lakers, and that was the first year I really started watching basketball. And outside of Kobe, man, this was right after Shaq, and I was sad, like to hear about Shaq as a kid. He was the man in LA when I was a kid, him and Kobe. But when Shaq left, it's Kobe and a bunch of guys I've never heard of. And the Clippers, my first game was a Clipper game because my parents, it was too expensive to go to a Laker game. We got beaten by the Suns, and I was like, well, Kobe's gonna get him. And Kobe did not get him. So I was thinking to myself, damn, they're the underdogs. I've always been a guy that sides with the underdog. And I was like, man, they're just as good as the Lakers, if not better. And nobody seems to talk about them. So I'm going to start talking about them. And then I started going to games the rest of the season. We made it we won our first ever playoff series that year. And I was a fan for life. That was it. I was a fan for life before that playoffs even started. But that was just like, I wasn't going anywhere after that.
What was that? Was that like, was that Elton Brand?
Yeah. Elton. That was my first Clipper jersey. I still have it. Elton Brand was, I mean, some kids don't know, like that season, 25 and like 12, great defense, mid-range assassin. I mean, you guys had him for the Bulls. I think we traded him we got him from the Bulls, right? Yeah, we got him from the Bulls. Yeah. We trade Tyson Chandler for him. Is that what it was?
Probably.
I think it was a draft pick for Tyson Chandler.
I remember, man, because I liked Elton Brand at first, and then I remember it goes to the Clippers, but that was a great team. I believe Corey Maggette,
Sam Cassell, who's just a winner wherever he goes, and then
who was the Katino Mobley?
Yes, awesome. And then Chris Kaman, and then our Sean Livingston, a young cornrows Sean Livingston off the bench. That was heartbreaking what happened to him the next year, but that was such a likable team, and we had it was kind of a veteran team. But we hadn't been. It was Sam Cassell's first year with us, and he took us to new heights. And yeah, made it to the second round. I'm still kind of sad we lost to Phoenix in that game 7, but it was a great start for my Clipper fandom for sure.
That's cool. That's a great story.
And you're a Bulls fan, but we were just talking before the show. You say you're from Michigan, so how did you become a Bulls fan in Piston territory?
So I live right on the southwest corner of Michigan, the border, pretty much. Real close to South Bend. Notre Dame, and so the actual local channels, we didn't have cable back then growing up, so we got like WGN, which is
wow,
Chicago.
There you go. Yeah. Wow.
And so everywhere else in Michigan gets Fox Sports Detroit. That little corner, since we were so close to Chicago, got WGN. And I mean, with brothers growing up being a big Jordan fan and becoming a fan right in the 3P, right in the 90s, It's so easy to be a Bulls fan. And with Jordan, Pippen, Rodman. I mean, Rodman was one of my favorite players. I loved his style of play. Some tough years there after, that
For
Jordan
sure.
retired and everybody left. But I mean, then you fall in love with the Kirk Heinrich, Ben Gordon, Louisville Dang Bulls.
Yeah, that I used to root for them a lot because my mom went to school in Chicago for college.
Yeah,
So
they
yeah,
were a lot of fun to watch. And then I haven't gotten over the Tibbs Bulls. Rose,
Noah.
Dang, Noah. Noah was one of my favorite Bulls ever. Rose, Rose is the same age as me pretty much.
Hmm.
So Rose was my favorite player, and that knee injury was devastating. I still haven't gotten over that. Um, and then we get rid of Tibbs. We have to escort Tibbs out of the locker room. We out of the building. We trade Jimmy Butler. So I haven't really gotten over it. What are your thoughts on? So Dustin was kind of buying into the hype, and I had to call him out on this a few times. And Bulls Twitter was going crazy. I had people on Bulls Twitter telling me that this Bulls team this year was better than the 2011 Bulls with MVP Derrick Rose.
My God.
And I was like, I don't think this team gets out of the first round. Second round at best. They're not contenders. What were your thoughts on this Bulls team this year?
I thought going into the season that you guys would be anywhere between 6 to 8.
Yeah.
I just because the main thing is I didn't think DeRozan would have a resurgence like this. I mean, this was unbelievable. You could argue this was
Mm-hmm.
the best season of his entire career, at least in the regular season. And him surprising me was the reason why to me you guys were top 2 for a little bit. I never really bought into that. The top 2, I thought you guys would drop as the season went on. And then
Yeah.
when Lonzo and Caruso got hurt, and then Levine starts getting hurt, it's mainly Lonzo though, because I don't think you guys are very deep, and you're seeing it in this playoffs.
Yeah.
And Io DeSumu's been good, and like he's a good young player, and Caruso's been good, but you just don't have much depth. So the loss of Lonzo, and he was playing so well this season on both ends.
Yeah.
After that, it's like I just think when you don't have a very deep team and you lose one of your main pieces, it's very hard. So I think 6th seed, all things considered, is a solid placement for the regular season. But you just got matched up with the defending champs, and you see the same issues with DeRozan. Levine doesn't look 100%, and I think going forward, if DeRozan's and Levine are going to be on the team together, I think you got to slowly work it so that I thought Levine was going to be the guy for this team after seeing him the last couple of years. And DeRozan's kind of come in and had such a great season. And Levine, I feel like, is kind of deferring and is playing like with a number 2 mindset. And I know people have their doubts about Zach, like maybe being a closer and certain things, but I mean, he's never going to be able to learn and develop even more as a star if he doesn't get the kind of the reins in ways. And I think going forward with DeRozan only aging, you got to look to get Zach to be more of that guy and act like more of that guy. Hopefully Lonzo can stay healthy next year, but I didn't fully buy into the hype. And they're definitely nothing like the 2011 team who was shut down on defense. Shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Derrick Rose was better than anybody on this team. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
People don't look at the numbers, but if you really were there that year, Derrick Rose was a menace.
Yeah. What do you think on that, Dustin?
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree that the 2011 team was better. I mean, Derrick Rose was something special.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely special. And one of my favorite players of all time in NBA, Joakim Noah, man. I loved him. And, for him being a center, he was a floor general. He ran the floor.
He did. He could pass.
Yeah.
And you throw in guys like Dang and at the time,
Boozer, yeah. Don't get me started on Boozer.
He had a good first season though. And Taj Gibson off the bench.
Yep.
Yeah, Gibson. Yep. I loved it, but I just want to throw something out there real quick. So I have been a Bulls fan my whole life, but there was a time where I did root for the Pistons. It was because I loved Richard Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
And
those Pistons were fun to watch. Ben Wallace, Chauncey.
To me, you got to really like basketball to watch those Pistons. To like saying that they're fun to watch because they used to keep teams under 70. Like you got to like defense to watch them. I love defense, so I like it now. But when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily like them.
That's my thing. Is like I love ugly basketball. I love defense first.
Early 2000s.
Oh yeah, Ben Wallace Pistons, the Bad Boys Pistons, the Tibbs Bulls. give me defense. One of my favorite games of all time was Game 7. I believe it was it 2010 Lakers Celtics?
Yes, that's
And
the
the
most. I mean, in LA, that may be the most famous game in the history of the Lakers because they beat the Celtics in a game 7. That's the only time that's ever happened. So
yeah, and it just seemed like the refs swallowed the whistles. They were just, we're gonna let them play.
until the fourth, where the Lakers got some favorable calls, but like you're
That's
seeing it this
true.
playoff, how many teams get good home centric calls? Like it's always existed. It's
Yeah,
just part of what comes with home court in the playoffs.
yeah. Dustin, you got a question?
Yeah, so being an LA guy, I know you're a Clippers fan, but what do you think about the Lakers? I mean, the media had them as favorites to win it all, and me and Alex personally said that with the addition of Russell Westbrook, we didn't think it was going to work, and we were right. So, what do you think about that? And them not even making a play-in tournament?
Well, I mean, I watch Laker games every night too. I've grown up with it with Kobe, so I've continued the same with my podcast. It was a train wreck in every single sense. I mean, where do you start? They couldn't stay healthy for one, all three of them, especially Anthony Davis. And serious questions are going to need to be start being asked about how durable can this guy be long term?
Yeah,
And then you have, I think LeBron tried a lot of different things. I think in the beginning of the season, he tried to get Westbrook going, and Russ didn't start the season too poorly. But as the new year kind of rolled in, he had some high turnover games. The media started getting on him. He started getting in his own head. The fit with LeBron wasn't great, as you guys said, and as a lot of people predicted. And then you had LeBron, who, as the season kind of progressed, started to just kind of focus on scoring. And I think maybe that was because he was trying to like let Westbrook handle the ball a bit. But then in the second half, he would just kind of revert to doing what LeBron has always done and just control the whole game. But the difference is with LeBron this year, that as he will then before the injury last year in the 2020 season, his defensive intensity just was not there. I mean, if you want to say he's old, fine, but you got to understand that, and also Russell Westbrook's defensive intensity was so bad. This is a guy that in OKC I started loving because he was a guy that was everywhere on the court. He would
yeah,
not fight over a screen. And then, so I agree with this. Another thing Ricky always says, and I've always agreed with this. If your two best players are not going to play defense, it's very hard, unless you have great defensive personnel around you, that they're going to follow suit. It's so easy to just dog it on defense when your stars are dogging it on defense. And I think that also making the trade for Westbrook, that's where they screwed up initially. Just making the trade for Russ, gutting your roster, KCP, Caruso. They could have actually kept Caruso, but they chose THT instead. And their perimeter defense was a joke. And that you take Anthony Davis out for half the season, their defense as a whole is a joke. So the role players were on all vet minimums. These were old guys. And LeBron's old. Russ is looking older. And AD's not playing. It was just a train wreck. And LeBron averages 30, but it wasn't the most meaningful 30 in the world.
yeah.
So, do you
It was an
believe
embarrassment.
like it was right to fire Frank Vogel? Because I feel like he was only there for 2 years and he did bring him a championship.
3 years, but I think it was the right decision to fire Vogel, even though I think he got scapegoated a bit too much by Laker fans. But I could sit here and tell you a lot of things that he kind of did wrong. He just kept switching it up. Every single game was a new starting lineup for the Lakers, partially because he couldn't figure out what to do. But the problem was there's a disconnect to me with the Lakers between like the GM, LeBron, the coach, like who's really making the decisions here? Because Vogel has always been a defense first guy. You go back to his Indiana teams, defense first. You go watch these Laker teams that won the chip. Remember, JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis started on that bubble team that won the championship.
Yeah.
And they were intimidating. They had Dwight Howard, they had 3 rim protectors.
Yeah.
And had Caruso, KCP, guys that would get after it on the perimeter. And they instead now put him with Russ and LeBron, who at this point of their careers, you're saying, oh, they can't play defense like that anymore. And then around them, you have either 3-and-D guys that are old and washed, like Avery Bradley and Trevor Ariza. Like, yeah, those would be amazing moves in 2016, but they're old now. And then Carmelo's not going to guard, but he can score. Malik Monk's not going to guard, but he can score. So they just don't have the right mix as well. And that came from going for Westbrook. And that's on LeBron and AD for recruiting him. Those stories are very public. They went for him. That's not something that LeBron is new to. He's recruited in Miami, recruited in Cleveland. He had to make his bed. He made his bed. He's got to lay in it now. And the whole team does.
Yep.
Go ahead. That is about the realest thing I've heard somebody say about that story. So
I mean,
Well, it's a fair take. You know, it's not like a fanboy take. You know,
the
I
only
mean,
people that are gonna argue, even like you got to talk to real Laker fans more than LeBron fans. The Laker fans know that LeBron recruited Westbrook. It's not all that they were trash. I mean, that was a bad move, but they could have gone over the luxury tax for Caruso, and they didn't. And that was cheap on the Lakers, part or whatever, Laker management. So yeah, that is what it is.
I feel like this is something that's kind of followed LeBron wherever he's gone. I mean, you go back to Cleveland. Remember when Cleveland had Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, and then
Yep.
they traded them all at the trade deadline for what? Who was it? Hood?
George Hill, Rodney Hood, and Jordan Clarkson and Larry
Yeah.
Nance.
And he's like, he was like, we got a fucking squad now.
Yeah.
I just, he's a great player, an all-time great player. But if you're gonna let LeBron be involved in bringing in, recruiting, I don't think he's a very good GM.
Yeah, you just got to limit him a little bit. Same thing happened with KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn to
Yeah.
me. They started getting a little like just trust the guys you got. I understand if you want to like if you have no stars on your team and you want to recruit that one co-star like he went for AD. I kind of understand that. Like I get it. You can't win a chip by yourself. But
Mhm.
what's with this need that LeBron has to build big threes all the time? Like relax. You won a championship with him, you and AD and good role players. Why isn't that enough? I think part of it's because he knows that AD's injury prone and he knows he's getting old. So he wanted a third star to like relieve him if he missed games sometimes. But like Westbrook of all people, like, you're such a smart basketball guy. You watch so much basketball. You really thought that was the ideal fit with you? Like, you really thought that you needed, even though he didn't think it was ideal, you went with the risk of going for a third star and gutting your roster instead of saying, you know what? Dame doesn't want to come. DeMar DeRozan is financially not going to work out. So why don't I just me and AD and we just retool our role players? But they didn't want to do that.
Buddy Hield would have been a much, much better fit with LeBron.
Yeah, my only issue with that is he doesn't play defense either. He would have been a
Yeah.
good shooter, but it's like they needed
They
to
would have had to
guard.
play run and gun and outshoot. Yeah.
Although if they could have kept Caruso and KCP though and Kuz, then never mind. I mean, then that would have been really good.
Speaking of the Nets, you brought them up. Shockingly, I mean, they get swept in the first round, the only team to get swept. But kind of not shockingly too, because when you watch the games, Boston defends at such an elite level. They did a great job of taking the game away from KD and Kyrie. And the Nets just didn't have the size. They couldn't defend. They couldn't rebound. So I'm not incredibly surprised at the sweep. And Boston's a lot better than I thought they were too. I didn't watch a ton of Boston,
Me too.
and they have brought it in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it best. They were too big. They were too strong, too connected. You can clearly tell that they've been playing together and playing as a unit and well for like the last couple of months. Whereas the Nets, they look like they're just figuring stuff out right now.
Yeah.
And that's never going to work unless your two stars play out of their minds. And they didn't even have one game where the two of them played well together in the same game. And that's like shocking. For KD, this was by far the most embarrassing moment of his career to me, no doubt. And I don't remember him ever playing this poorly in a series. And then Kyrie Irving, he had a bad moment against Milwaukee when he left the Celtics, but this may have been even worse after last year, rubbing his shoe on the logo. The fans hate him. He didn't get vaccinated. And it's kind of like he gave this impression like, we'll be cool in the playoffs. As long as Kyrie and KD are healthy, they got a chance. It's just not how it works. Not against the team with good role players. It was a bad matchup, but also the Celtics embraced the process. They didn't tank. They didn't want to lose on purpose to play you guys in the first round. They went for that 2 seed and said, bring on the Nets, and they just embarrassed them. So props to them. I think this is the best Celtics team since Garnett and Pierce.
Yeah. And that should set up a hell of a matchup, Celtics Bucks.
Oh yeah.
I'm leaning Bucks just because I gotta see someone beat Giannis and slow Giannis down. But I can't wait. I think this is a 7-game series and very physical, very hard fought.
Definitely.
And the one thing is the Bucks need Middleton back as soon as
that's
possible.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Without Middleton, I'd definitely have to favor Boston. With Middleton, it's more of a toss-up, but I think I'm going to play it safe right now and just go Celtics in 7 with the home court advantage. They just look so the way they're playing the best basketball right now to me in the
Yeah.
East. It's just unbelievable the way that they're playing. My friends in Massachusetts, I went to UMass and I was just there a couple of weeks ago and they were obviously feeling good. And I'm like, you know what? I think you guys are really good, but you're still 1 year away. Like Tatum's still a little young to win it all, but I don't know, man. He could be like the next, like in the way that D Wade won so young, he could be that dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Dustin.
So I want to go back a minute to the Nets. So Ben Simmons, I mean, where do they go next? I mean, I've been watching, a lot of ESPN and stuff, and he's under a lot of heat where they were saying like this is Ben Simmons' fault and he should have been playing by now to help out the Nets, and they were saying that he should be over his mental stage and all that. I mean, what's next for Ben Simmons? Is he a net next year?
Gotta be, I'd assume. I mean, the thing with Ben Simmons is this year has shown that, he definitely has some issues going on. He couldn't handle the criticism well that Glenn Rivers gave him, or it wasn't intentional, but he answered a question in a press conference, and obviously the Philly media is so brutal. Even Embiid didn't go to bat him. He said our our star all-star like didn't go up for a layup or something, was scared to shoot or something along those lines. And he quit on the Sixers basically. And what's even more weird is that he had this sudden back thing, and now you have reports coming out that his mental health is stressing him out and it's hurting his back. Like, so to me, there's so much going on there that I can't even comment because I'm not around the situation. All I know is I expect Ben Simmons. This is probably maybe just some optimistic thinking. I expect Ben Simmons to be ready to go opening night for the Nets next season. And if he's not, I really do not know what to say because
Yeah.
they need him. They could have used him so much in this series with his size. It's going to make it so much easier. Getting him and Joe Harris back is going to be big. I still have my doubts about the Nets winning a championship, but they're a real contender if they can get Ben Simmons and Joe Harris back and then maybe get one more wing guy to come off the bench and then stay healthy with KD, Kyrie, and Ben all playing at least like 55 games, and then we can see how they stack up.
Yeah, I tend to think that if the Nets had won Game 3, I think Ben Simmons plays Game 4.
Really?
I think so because I think it was so easy for him to be like, we're down 0-3. What's the point? We're not coming back. We're not winning 4 in a row. But at this point, going back the past couple of years, I think we got to start questioning Ben Simmons' love of the game and whether he, and mental toughness and whether he can do it. But I agree with you. I think he's ready to go next year, and I want to see it. I want to see how it looks.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. It sounds really harsh to say a professional basketball doesn't truly love the game, but it's like, damn, bro. Like the thing about the injury is I really don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like some players just built a little differently. Like, they respond to criticism differently. And the way he responded to criticism was very like the stereotypical player of this era that's criticized, like entitled, has always been handed always been the number one guy wherever he's gone. He can't handle a little bit of heat, bitching and moaning in practice and doing all this stuff, being defiant and just disappearing. It's like, yeah, I agree. How much do you want to win?
What do you think of this? This is just like a question I just thought of. So going back to, remember when Derrick Rose caught heat for coming off the injury, the playoffs were coming up and there was these rumors, maybe Derrick Rose who's missed all season can play in the playoffs and then he doesn't and doesn't come back. The team's putting pressure on him to return and there's a disagreement between the player and the team. Remember when Kawhi had that disagreement with the Spurs? And then
I mean, for sure that. Well, I was trying to think, what year was it for D Rose that he was getting questioned? Was it 2013 or 14?
I want to say it was 2012 or 2013.
Because 2012 was the year that he tore his ACL against Philly, and then 2013 he missed the whole season.
Yeah, 2013.
Okay, when you guys beat the Nets.
Yes.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that, but I was also team like it's probably not good to risk it at this point. Like,
yeah,
I'm never a fan of if a guy's missed that much time to just bring him in the first. Like with Kawhi, for example, perfect example. I was never a fan of if bringing him back in the playoffs because like it's too high level. They need to get in rhythm, man, and it's just yeah. You need that. You need those 10 to 20 games to me.
absolutely, to ramp up for the playoffs. And then so you're seeing a little bit of that with Zion too with the Pelicans.
I question his motivation as well a little bit.
Do you think the teams and like leak it to the media and try to put pressure on these players? I mean, that damages your relationship with the player. what do you think the mindset is there?
That's a great question. And I honestly have no real answer for it. I don't know if I would hope the team doesn't try to put more pressure on the players that way and
Yeah.
keep things out of house. Cause I'm always a fan of, I love being part of a team, and team is a family. You got to keep certain things in house. And
Yep.
that's all I have to say about that. I really don't know, but that would be crazy if they did, to try to put pressure on them secretly. Like, yeah, let's go tell Chris Haynes to report that Zion's like kind of healthy.
Yeah. I've noticed a little bit of a trend of it recently. So I was just curious. Go ahead, Dustin.
So the Heat beat the Hawks, and they pulled away even without their two best players, and Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler. So what do you feel about the Miami Heat? Like, are they contenders for the finals to win the championship?
Yeah, my bad. No, I mean, I think the Miami Heat, in terms of the winning the whole thing, I've considered them somewhat of pretenders this year, just because I feel as though I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan, to be honest, but I just don't know if Jimmy Butler is that dude to win the championship as the best player. And that's nothing against Jimmy Butler. That class of players is very special. It's a very exclusive list of players. And, there are some exceptions, like the 04 Pistons we were talking about earlier. They had not one superstar, but they had like 5 stars damn near. Like that team is underrated in terms of like how good Chauncey Billups is. Chauncey Billups is a star. I'm taking Chauncey Billups over Lowry. And then Rip Hamilton. I mean, Max Strus having a great playoffs. He's not Rip Hamilton. And then Tayshaun Prince. He's like, I guess PJ Tucker's a great defender for this era, but Tayshaun Prince is another level, I think, as far as guarding wing players and guards. And then Rasheed Wallace was like a bucket in the post. Like Bam Adebayo is great, but in terms of scoring, he's not touching Rasheed Wallace. And then Ben Wallace is Ben Wallace. So that team's a little bit of an exception. I think the Heat are similar in the sense that they have no guy. I think they can get to the finals. I think they're legit as hell. Their defense was so impressive this series. They're deep. They're well coached. Jimmy Butler's playing great. They have 3 stars, but I think they lack that guy. So I have to say that the winner of the Bucks Celtics series, I think is gonna go to the championship. But if the Heat can win the East, there's no reason to think they may not be able to win the chip. But I would favor the Warriors over them.
Yeah, it's an interesting year because it's so up for grabs. There's no one dominant team. The East is so good. There's like 3 teams right now. I mean, Philly, Miami, Philly, and let's say Philly gets there and doesn't blow a 3-0 lead. I don't trust Philly at all against Miami.
Me neither. Especially with the way Harden's been playing.
Yeah.
So
what about Maxey though? Maxey's not bad.
He's been awesome. I mean, he's slowed down the last couple of games they've lost, but in the first 2 games in Philly, he was electric, especially in game 1. He was amazing. And he's really talented. I think he has a great future for that team. They got to keep him around. But as I said, I definitely favor Miami. Their defense, they're connected, they're better coached. And Embiid's got that little finger injury now or thumb injury. But it mainly comes down to they need Harden to not even be Houston Harden. I think too many people are saying that. He literally can't be Houston Harden anymore. He's getting older. He's gained weight. He's a little slower. But can he be good? Can he be a top 15 player in the league type of deal?
Yeah.
Create good shots for his team. Play decent enough defense. Make some big shots to take pressure off of Embiid. I wouldn't put my money on any of that stuff. I'm going with Miami.
Yeah, and we've seen Harden, even prime Harden, disappear in big playoff games.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Dustin?
So what do you think about like Doc Rivers? I mean, if they fail to make the finals or even the Eastern Conference Finals, man, they've had stacked teams, and now they got Harden and Embiid with big expectations. What do you feel like?
You're kicking a hornet's nest on this one, Dustin.
Did you come prepared for this question, or was this just out of the blue?
You know what?
You're talking to the president of the Glen Rivers Slander Association right now. Now look.
Okay. Well, yeah. I didn't come prepared for this. It just hit me, but
my answer is Glen Rivers is a good man, but as far as coaches go, he's the most, and it's not even close, the most overrated coach in the history of the NBA. And man, I'm not no expert on other sports, but he may be the most overrated coach in the history of American sports. He has been living off that one title in 2008 that Dom Thibodeau was his assistant coach, that had this amazing defensive scheme against Kobe and Plus, he had a team of dogs like Garnett, Pierce, and selfless dogs, mind you. Everybody gives Pierce a rap because he's cocky, but he was so amazing in terms of knowing when to take over games and letting Rondo, everybody, just the balance of that Celtics team was almost too balanced sometimes. Like sometimes you watch that '08 playoffs and remember, they got taken to 7 by the Hawks in the first round. They got taken to 7 by the Cavs. Because at times it was like they were still kind of figuring out how to play with each other in playoff games, but eventually it all worked out. However, I think that team was stacked. Glenn Rivers, I could literally write an essay on the mistakes he's made as a coach. Let's put it this way. He's apparently a player's coach that doesn't get along with all the players. Chris Paul hated him. Ben Simmons didn't like him. And he doesn't really make adjustments. He's very stubborn in his own ways. I can name numerous occasions, but more than anything too, and also blowing leads. Like that's part of the reason why he doesn't make any adjustments. He takes too long to call timeouts, and he kind of has this like lack of accountability and lack of a sense of urgency sometimes. Like, oh, we missed shots. Like, dude, there's some things that I shouldn't be able to point out that you can't. Or if you're not addressing them, that's an even bigger issue. A guy from the Clippers media came up to me at one of the games and was saying that we had people in the bubble that literally said the assistant coaches, the analytics teams used to tell him like, basically like, look, this lineup is not really working. Let's look at what's happening. And he would just say, nah, I don't need that. Like, I'm just going to stick with what I'm seeing. I'm the coach. It's like, dude, your assistant coach has ended up being a 10 times better coach than you. So if anyone can blow a 3-0 lead, it's him. I wouldn't be surprised. He would be fired on the spot. And I mean, I think everyone's on to him now, but that would just be the most epic thing ever. I want to see a 3-0 lead before I die for sure. Blown. And I think this could be the one.
That's going to be a big-ass game 6 because if you let it go to 7, the pressure's on.
Especially in Philly. Oh, God. I think they're going to win, though, game 6 Toronto, unless Embiid just has a commanding performance. Like, because I don't trust Harden to do that. Embiid needs to take the life out of that building, but I don't know if he can. That momentum's gonna be crazy, and Siakam's been playing good ball.
Yeah, it's gonna be must watch. It sounds like you just described the NBA version of Matt Nagy.
But Matt Nagy, the Bulls, the Bears coach.
Yeah, I'm the president of the Matt Nagy hate club. So.
Oh man, that's crazy though, that WGN thing. So you literally lived in the state of Michigan, but you got local broadcasts from the Bulls station and not the Pistons.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that would give me every reason to be a Bulls fan then, honestly. I mean, the local TV, what's on local TV? That's to me what are you further from Detroit or Chicago?
No, closer to Chicago, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, then never mind then. What am I? You have every right to be a Bulls fan. What?
Yeah. And I had this one teacher in high school that I always complained about. He's a diehard Detroit fan. Yeah. And he would come down to that area and he'd be like, "What is this madness? We're in Michigan, but everyone's watching Chicago sports."
Yeah, that's that's the TV station's fault, man. If you wanted to make more Pistons fans, if it would have shown Fox Sports Detroit or whatever, maybe it would have been a difference.
Plus, who's trying to watch Lions games? Come on now.
No, I feel you on that. What was the best commentators? Was it Johnny Red Kerr and Tom Dorr?
Oh, yeah.
Or what's the name? Jim Durham and Johnny
Red Kerr was the man.
Yeah, Jim Solomon always tells me about he loved listening to broadcasts with him. You know Jim Solomon on Twitter?
Yeah. He's pretty good, yeah.
He knows the Bulls, man.
And then of course Stacey King.
Oh, he's hilarious. I've for the first time this season I was watching some Bulls games. Oh my God. And then watching the D Rose 2011, him and Neil Font.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, dude. That guy has me in stitches.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dustin.
Oh no, I mean, I agree with what you guys were saying, and that's how I became a Bulls fan too. Was all it playing on the TV and everything.
Yeah, local area.
In this area, and it was just incredible. I just want to throw this out there though, man. Like, what even made me became an even bigger fan of basketball was that Celtics Bulls series when there was like what were the 2 games that went to overtime?
Oh, it was 2009. That may be the best first round series I've ever seen in my life. That was at least for the East. I mean, I can't think of one that tops that. I think there was overtime in game 1. Game 2, Ray Allen made a game winner. Game 4, there was like 2 overtimes. Game 6, there was 3 overtimes. Like that series was epic.
Yeah, Ben Gordon game winner in like game 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think it was either a game tie or a game winner in game 4.
Yeah.
And then remember Ben Gordon made a go-ahead shot in game 5, and then I think Pierce made a game winner.
Yeah.
Pierce
And
was
I'll
cold,
always
man.
remember Noah with that steal and
Oh
dunk
yeah,
and
Game 6
one.
in Triple OT.
Yep.
That series was incredible. Rondo versus Rose. That was just
Yeah.
great because Garnett was
Yeah.
hurt, so
Garnett,
that's why.
that was what opened the door. That's my
Yeah,
big criticism on LeBron is like Garnett goes down, the East should be yours. And then they got beat by Orlando.
yeah. Magic were shooting lights. Dwight Howard was playing like Shaq in that series, and then the next series, not the same.
Yeah. Don't get Dustin started on Dwight Howard. He thinks he's Shaq.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
Dustin.
I said he had the potential to be Shaq.
He never got polished in the post like Shaq. Shaq's like skill in the post is ridiculous.
Yeah. We just watched the Grizzlies and Timberwolves, which has been one of the probably the best series. Been so much fun to watch. John Morant game winner tonight, scored the final 13 Grizzlies points. Anthony Edwards with a game tying 3 before that game winner. What are your thoughts on John Morant versus Anthony Edwards, two of the great future stars? Who do you think's got the brighter future there?
Ooh, it's tough to see who has the brighter future. I'm kind of biased to Ja just because I've seen a little more of him. He's a point guard, and obviously my channel is called Dime Dropper for a reason. He definitely is a solid passer, but I just love how gritty he is. Not to say that Ant isn't, but what he's done to this Memphis Grizzlies franchise and how quickly he's turned them around since he's gotten there is unbelievable. Second seed in year 3.
Yeah.
And he's had a tough series so far, to be honest. I think you're starting to see something that I maybe kind of downplayed in the regular season, and that was that in the playoffs, man, he doesn't really have a consistent jump or even a mid-range. So his everything is kind of at the paint, and sometimes teams wall off the paint, pack it, and he's so good at getting 2 feet in the paint, but they're doing a great job with their length and size of rotating last minute and just swarming him. But tonight, he was in the second half, he was able to find his openings, his cracks, work fast. They played him a little bit more off the ball, and he got to the line a lot in the fourth, and that was a terrible gamble on the steal by Anthony Edwards, and he made it pay with a great game winner.
That kind of reminds me of John Wall a little bit when he was coming up with the Wizards.
Not a
It was
bad
like,
comparison.
can he get that J? You know, can he?
And I would say John Wall has had more of a mid-range before he got hurt than this Ja. But maybe if I look at, I'd say third year Ja is definitely further. I mean, I'm sorry, not further off, but like on a better road than third year John Wall.
Yeah.
Because John
Yeah.
Wall didn't make the playoffs till the 4th season, and
Yeah.
what Ja's doing this year is pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
It was getting D Rose comparisons, but I think it was close at least as far as regular season, but as we've seen, no, he's not better. I don't think he was, but he's definitely not better than 2011 Rose to me.
What's up
They're
with
both in
him
their
winning
30
the
years.
most improved player award?
I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I get he's taking a 3rd-year leap, but again, so did Derrick Rose. Like he literally, you know what I'm saying? I think Ja was in. I think I agree with what Draymond said. Josh should be top 5 in MVP voting,
Yes.
not most improved. I mean, yes, he improved, but you got to. He's a second pick in the draft. He won Rookie of the Year, just eliminated Steph Curry and outplayed him in a play-in game in last year's play-in tournament. Desmond Bane, people were not really talking about him before this season, and he's like out here outscoring Ja in the playoffs. Jordan Poole is looking like ridiculous out here. So to me, those are the 2 choices that I would have gone with, but they gave it a Ja. I don't really like it personally. And Ja, I think Ja realizes it's stupid too.
Yeah, I like that he gave it to Desmond Bane.
Yeah, he has great self, and that's the thing I love about Ja. He has great self-awareness. He's a young leader. He accepts responsibility, and I know some people think he talks a little too much. Sometimes even I think he talks a little too much, but it's like he has fun with it. And you know that if he loses, he's going to take it so hard. Like he's one of those that kind of old school mentality, you know, and I love that. I'm always going to support a player like that. Memphis used to be us Clippers and the Grizzlies used to have battles. So it's hard for me to like that franchise, but I like Ja, man. He's a beast.
Yeah. Real quick, one thing I forgot to ask in that Trae Young went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, led the Hawks, and his nickname Ice Trae. That's a good description for how he's playing this year.
Oh man, his season's over tonight. It's done.
Yeah. What?
He had a tough time. I don't know if Dustin had something, but
yeah, go ahead, Dustin.
I just wanted to ask, like, you know, I think he's a superstar, but he also has off games. What do you think about Karl Anthony Towns? Like I feel, you know, he should take the Timberwolves farther.
You know, Cat's an interesting one because I thought he was a monster in college when he was in Kentucky. They went undefeated until the Final Four. And you know why I liked him is because he was dominant in the post. He had great touch, jump hooks. And then he gets to the NBA and he starts showing me this jump shot. And I'm like, wow, if he can put two and two together, post up and the jumper, he could be one of the best offensive centers we've ever seen. And slowly but surely, I think he kind of just became a jump shooting big that didn't go to
Yeah.
his strengths enough. I mean, yeah, you can say jump shooting is one of his strengths, but I'm always going to agree with 7 foot. I would agree with Shaq and Chuck, 7-footers, especially the ones that can post, get deep and dominate like a real big man. Use your advantage. And I think that's something that Jimmy Butler really got on him about and didn't like. Because if you go back and watch the 2018 playoffs, the only other time that Minnesota's made it with him against Houston, Houston was switching everything and he was getting PJ Tucker in the post and or PJ Tucker on a switch and he just wouldn't go to the post. So I started thinking like, yo, this may be part of the reason why Karl Anthony Towns hasn't necessarily, his numbers look solid, but I think he could be like a 28, 30 point a game kind of guy, not 23, 24. And then I'd say this season and he's also had problems staying healthy. And then last year was COVID, was like insane. But this is the first year where I really think that he's been a little bit more aggressive. I think Anthony Edwards has actually brought some of that out of him. You've seen in press conferences, he calls him out for shit like that. So Cat has been better, but in this playoffs, he's had 3 good games. I thought he played pretty well tonight, despite some errors late. But he's had 2 good games in which they've won and 3 bad games. My issue with him is he falls too in love with the jump shot. He's not aggressive enough on mismatches. And to me, that mismatch stuff is not he has the skill. It's about the will. And also his defense used to be bad. It's gone a lot better. To me, also his boneheaded decisions. Like he has stupid fouls and some reckless shot selection. One of which was tonight. Like they were against momentum. Crowd was going nuts. And he shot like a quick 3 and it wasn't even open either. It didn't even hit rim. But the fouls, I mean, they've been like 2 or 3 games since going back to the playing game against my Clippers. He's been in foul trouble with just really stupid fouls. So to me, he's a star, not a superstar. Probably won't be a superstar just because of his own, like he prevents himself from being as good as he can be, I think.
Yeah, I agree with 100% of that. Like, there's a big problem with these guys that can shoot is they fall in love with the jumper too much instead of getting their ass in the paint and dominating. And when you got a mismatch, we've gotten on LeBron about this before too. You got a smaller guy on you and you're a physical beast, go to work. You got the skills to do it. That's an and one,
Yeah. I think Jokic and Embiid have actually figured out a really good medium for this. And I think that's why they've dominated the NBA at the center position like we haven't seen since Shaq since Shaq really, or Dwight. But I think Embiid and Jokic have way more offensive skill than Dwight did.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Warriors, so the Warriors, you get the big 3 back together, Clay, Steph, and Draymond. I'm always going to root for that. I love it. They were built through the draft. They've proven they can win even without Durant. They've gotten it done. Now you add Jordan Poole to that, an up-and-coming player. The Warriors are my pick to win the West. What do you think on that?
I was saying Warriors all season. But then with the injuries, I was starting to doubt it because they were a little shaky at the end. With Steph being out at the end of the season, that was like a huge concern for me.
Yeah.
So I was going Suns going into the playoffs. And now it's kind of funny. It kind of switched. Steph Curry came back. He played in the first game. Yeah, he played in the first game, Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
So he played this whole series. So you have Steph Curry came back. He's kind of gotten a chance to work his way in, and he's done it pretty quickly. And this is not new for Steph. He came back in the playoffs in 2016, but he wasn't fully 100% there, even though he still came back on that 3-1 from the Thunder. And then in 2018, he missed the whole first round against San Antonio and came back against the Pelicans. So he's not new to coming back in the playoffs. So I think that's helped him a little bit that he's been there, done that. But then you get Devin Booker going down. And now that really changes things. So I'm going to have to go with the Warriors now, especially with the way they're playing.
I want Warriors
Klay
Bucks.
Thompson's playing.
Yeah. Clay, it's so good to see Clay back and doing what he does.
Yeah, and he's been so efficient in this playoffs, which is crazy because he's had his hot and cold games in the season, but the bright lights come on and you're shooting 50% with like 7 threes a night. Like, sheesh.
Give me that team, and then Draymond. I'm a Michigan State fan, so I got mad love for Draymond. He's the closest thing to Rodman I've seen, so I love it. Plus a little offensive game too.
Yeah, Draymond's had a great series. He's frustrated Jokic at times.
Yeah.
He's just built for playoff basketball. He's got such a high one of the highest basketball IQs in the NBA, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah.
What,
Go ahead, Dustin.
what do you think about Steve Kerr's decision of having Curry come off the bench?
I think Kerr and Curry have a really great relationship. I love the dynamic between those two. And I think it says so much about Stephen Curry, guys, that he's willing to come off the bench, given that he's like the greatest Warrior ever. The
Yep.
fans love him. He's arguably like, I still think he's somewhere in the best player in the world conversation, somewhere in there. I know Giannis looks so great right now, but Steph's experience and just how incredible he is on offense and his effect on teammates is, I think, is you can't understate, especially the way that he moves off the ball. Like everyone says that Kerr runs this specific system. Yeah, a system that's centered around Steph. And sometimes when Steph's not in it, it doesn't look that great, but
Yep.
they stay with that principle because of Steph. If they had different personnel, I don't think Steve Kerr would be running that system.
Mhm.
And Steph Curry is so selfless for coming off the bench because he's going to have to get put back in the starting lineup soon. You might see it tomorrow night for game 5. And if he does, that means someone's going to have to go to the bench. And I don't think it's going to be Looney. I think it's going to be one of Clay or Poole. And when they do get put to the bench, you got to think and say, if Steph didn't cry about it, you better not cry about it. And that's called leading by example. Steph Curry is in that Tim Duncan type of mold to me. Like, I just don't care, whatever the team needs. And that's special, really special.
Yeah, you can tell he was raised by what's his name? Del Curry, and taught the game the right way. And Steve Kerr, such an underrated coach. Like, I think he's an all-timer. And
that's one of the most fascinating things about Twitter discourse is the way that people talk about Steve Kerr. Obviously, Ricky, he pushes back on it a lot. And to be fair, I'm totally on Ricky's side. And like people like to say that it's because Steve Kerr went to my high school. That's why I'm biased. But it's not just that. Like, I literally just think that he's a really good coach. He changed the Warriors team. Like, Curry was there before Kerr, and Curry has been there after Kerr. And despite the fact that obviously Curry's going to get better natural maturation, you can't tell me you watch the Warriors and don't see that they're a well-coached team. You can't. I've seen it because my team plays against them and got their ass kicked. You know what I'm saying? People think that it's so easy to win with talent, but the way Steve Kerr made it look so seamless for KD to just slide in there, and you got to give credit to the players too. Like, Draymond doesn't give a shit about points. Klay Thompson barely dribbles the ball, and Steph Curry just moves without the ball. So a guy like KD, who we're seeing is definitely more favored, likes to ISO more than we thought in Golden State, just bought into the system. And you got to give Kerr the credit. Also, defense. People don't give Steve Kerr that credit. We always talk about Warriors offense. It's very clear defense is a big priority for that team and that guy.
Yeah, and you have to understand it. He came from, he played under Phil Jackson.
And
he played under Pop.
Literally.
And I believe Lenny Wilkins in Cleveland, too. So he's been around for a long time. A lot of championships. Big Steve Kerr fan. Go ahead, Dustin. One more?
Yeah, so who is your finals matchup, and who do you think wins the chip?
Before the playoffs, I said it would be Bucks, and before the season, I said Bucks and Suns rematch, honestly, just because, I don't know, I kind of tend to, the way you said, like, Giannis needs to get knocked off, I've always kind of been like, if I'm not seeing, because every team makes changes during the offseason, if I don't see many big changes, if I see big changes, I kind of got to see you play first before I start making claims like that. So I'm going to go with the safe pick, and the safe pick before the season was Bucks and Suns. But now, as I said, I was going into the playoffs, I was leading Bucks and in the season, I was going Bucks and Warriors, and then again, Bucks and Suns going into the playoffs. But right now, I'm going to go with Warriors and going back to the finals for the first time since 2010. Boston Celtics shooting for ring number 18. It feels different right now, guys, with Boston. It kills me to say it because I know my friends are going to be so loud if they win. I can't argue when I see winning basketball out there.
Man, I can understand that 100%. For me, it's Warriors, and I'm going Bucks. I gotta see Giannis get beat. Middleton being out is huge. There's no way around that. But I can't wait for this Bucks Celtics series. That to me is the playoffs right there. And
basically these Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I think so. Unless if Miami wins the East, man, I'll give them a full-fledged apology for all this talk.
Me too, but I agree with you. I don't see them beating either team. I love their defense in Miami, but
I think it's just the talent, literally, like literally just the best player type of deal. That's all it
Yeah.
is. Sometimes you
And
just
I'm a
need that
big
guy.
Jimmy Butler fan too, but it's
Me too.
like, yeah, I do have my questions on Jason Tatum. I want to see it. And if he
Okay,
can
what
do
you're not
that,
the first round didn't convince you enough.
hey, it's a first round. I want to see it
But
conference
KD
finals.
though, he's not a typical
Huh?
first round guy.
That was very impressive. Very impressive. But I can't buy all in just yet. If they beat the Bucks, okay, I'm all in. But
I
this
just
second round is everything for me. It's a big prove it series for me for the Celtics.
fair
I,
enough.
I've been sleeping on the Celtics, you know, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Um, and I've been right for the most part. You know, and they go up 2-0 on Cleveland. They're so young, though. I was rooting for them, but they were so young. And then Cleveland comes back and wins that series. So Celtics Bucks is big. And then I just for me to watch and entertainment, Bucks Warriors to me would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, I think it'll be a
What
lot
about
of
you, Dustin? Who's your pick?
Oh man, at first I didn't even have Boston and nothing, man.
fun.
They impressed me. I mean, I know the Nets had their issues, but they impressed me. But at the end of the day, there's absolutely nobody in the playoffs who can stop Giannis. That's just my opinion.
I want to see
and,
if Boston can build a wall and
and
stop Giannis.
I think
Look,
what's gonna be interesting to see is if Boston can get away with. I mean, they're gonna have to build some walls at a lot of points in the series, but if they, as much as they can get away with not helping too much, and
yeah,
because they're showing amazing one-on-one defense so far, like Jason Tatum, Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, even Horford are
yeah,
all staying in front and doing an amazing job, and they're letting a little bit more physicality go this year in the playoffs than in a
I'm
couple of years
loving that.
past.
I'm
And I
loving
think
the physicality.
that may be able to keep Giannis in front of them a little bit more than other teams. Like I think if any team can beat Milwaukee, the Celtics have so many bodies to throw at Giannis that are big that they may just have enough to slow him down just enough.
Yeah, I
so the big factor would be for me is the health of Chris Middleton.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna go with Bucks out of the East, and man, it's tough between the Suns and Warriors.
If they
Uh,
Suns the same way if they get Booker back.
yeah, if the Suns get Booker back, give me the Suns. But as of now, I'm going with Warriors. And quick question for you: what does it mean for Giannis if he can two-peat? I mean, that's not easy to do.
Not at all. I mean, the thing is, in terms of like where I would place him like all time in this stuff, I gotta sit down and like look at it and make a criteria or something like that. But oh my god, I mean, there's only a select few people in the history of the league to be the best player on back-to-back championship teams. And you think Bill Russell, Jordan, Magic, Kobe,
Hakeem.
Hakeem Olajuwon, even Tim Duncan and Larry Bird never went
Yeah.
back to back. I'm not saying that I would put Giannis over those guys if he wins that, but that's special, man. And to do what he's done at his age, I don't even know if I can even describe him as a true position. Like, I don't even consider him like a true power forward. He's not, he's a forward to me. You know what I'm saying? Like he plays with power, but doesn't operate the same way our traditional power forwards that we grew up watching do. He moves kind of like a small forward up the court, but he has the strength of a power forward. So it's weird, but oh my God. I mean, I would say this though. I would put him maybe just underneath of this era, maybe just underneath LeBron. Like as crazy as it sounds, I maybe would lean Giannis over KD, Kawhi, and Steph all time. Maybe. I really would consider that because I love Steph Curry, but he's won one championship as the guy, as you said, and it was against a very hampered Cavs team, a Rockets team that should have probably been in the conference finals. We choked a 3-1 lead, but I can't hold that against him. Injuries happen in every playoffs, but he's never gone back to back. If Curry had gotten that 73-9 done, though, he would have been a top 10 player of all time, probably.
Yeah.
But they blew it. And sometimes it's just that margin. Like, because the thing is, you can always compare skill sets, but it's like Giannis and Steph Curry are so different. So, like, it's very hard. Like, of course, Steph's a better shooter, better on offense, but he doesn't have the size Giannis does, doesn't defend like Giannis does. So, it's like what you prioritize. And at that point, I just look at who affects winning more. And if Giannis does that, I got nothing to say.
For me, the storylines, the narratives, the everything about it, Warriors Bucks would be so much fun. I want to see that so badly. So I'm gonna be a big Bucks fan against Boston, and we'll see what happens. If Boston beats Giannis and the Bucks,
They should
and
be
they've
able to go
got
all
my
the way.
respect. I think they beat the Heat. And I mean, I'll say right now, I'll be rooting against Boston probably all playoffs as far as they go. I'll be rooting for the Warriors if it's Boston Warriors, but if they keep proving me wrong, that's going to be a special run.
It's crazy because I saw a tweet today and it makes sense that the Celtics, their road to the finals is literally the last 3 teams that beat them each year in the playoffs. They lost the
That's
Nets last year, lost the Heat in the conference finals in the bubble, and the year before is when the Bucks beat them and Kyrie left. So that would be crazy to
wow.
go through Bucks, Heat, and Nets to get to the finals. It would come full circle for Tatum, Jalen, and Marcus Smart.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. And how about Ime Udoka?
Oh
What a
man,
job.
unreal! Never seen a team put Kevin Durant in jail like that. That was unreal. And
Yeah,
they did it to Kyrie too. It was
yeah.
unbelievable.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, man. This was great to have you on. Great insight. This was highly educational basketball talk right here. This was fun.
Hey man, thanks so much for having me. I had a great time. It was super easy. Felt like we'd already talked before,
Yeah,
and it's been fun. It's always fun to talk about the playoffs.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dustin. Good content as always, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and definitely nice to meet you, man. And thanks for being a guest on the show.
You too, man. Keep it up, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
you too. We'll keep following your show and keep promoting all the stuff you're doing and love the content.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. At Dime Jumper Pod on Twitter, and you can find me on YouTube, Dime Jumper Podcast. I have my own channel, so check me out.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So have a great week, guys. Thanks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think, and peace out.